Captain Marcus Hale stood at the threshold of the jet bridge, the low hum of the aircraft vibrating up through his shoes. Dawn washed the terminal in a tired gray, the kind that made faces look flatter, older. He adjusted his cap, felt the reassuring press of the wings stitched on his chest, and breathed. Another flight. Another careful ritual. "Sir, hold up." The voice snapped the comm clean in half. Marcus turned to see two airport police officers approaching fast, their boots loud against the tile. One of them didn't slow down, didn't soften his eyes, didn't look twice at the uniform Marcus wore. "Step away from the aircraft," the officer said. Passengers craned their necks. A gate agent hesitated, frozen between her console and the scene unfolding too quickly to stop. "I'm the pilot," Marcus said evenly. "What's going on?" The officer's gaze dragged over him. His face, his hands, the dark skin under the brim of the cap, then dismissed him. "We got a call." "A call about what?" "About you," the officer said. "About someone impersonating flight crew." Marcus felt something cold move through his chest. He held out his ID. The officer barely glanced at it. "This doesn't look right," the man said. "Turn around." Plastic cuffs closed around Marcus's wrists. "Too tight. Too public." "This is a mistake," Marcus said, his voice low but steady. "You're stopping a plane." The officer leaned in, breath close enough to smell coffee and arrogance. "You people always say that." Phones came up. Whispers spread. No one moved to stop it. As Marcus was pulled away from the aircraft, an engine roared to life behind the glass, loud, impatient, while the cockpit he was trained to command slipped out of reach. Captain Marcus Hale adjusted the brim of his navy cap as the jet bridge hummed beneath his feet. Dawn light bled through terminal windows, pale and cold, catching the silver letters stitched above his heart. "First officer." He felt the familiar steadiness settle into his chest, the calm before engines, the ritual before flight. A shout cut the air. "Hey, you!" Marcus turned. Two uniformed airport police officers stood at the gate rope, hands resting near their belts. One was tall, jaw tight, eyes already narrowed. The other scanned Marcus's ID badge without touching it. "Yes," Marcus said. "Step away from the aircraft," the tall one ordered. "Now." Passengers watched from their seats, faces half curious, half bored. A gate agent froze, headset crooked. "I'm scheduled to fly this leg," Marcus said, keeping his voice level. "What's the issue?" "Don't get smart," the officer replied. "We had a report." "A report of what?" Marcus asked. "Of you not being who you say you are," the officer said, finally grabbing the badge. He squinted, then smirked. "This yours?" Marcus felt heat crawl up his neck. "Yes. You can verify with the captain or dispatch." The officer laughed softly. "We will." He twisted Marcus's arm just enough to hurt. Plastic cuffs snapped closed. The gate agent gasped. "This is unnecessary," Marcus said. "You're delaying a flight." "Funny," the officer said. "You don't look like a pilot." Silence pressed in, thick and loud. Phones lifted. Someone whispered. Marcus stared at the aircraft door, open and waiting. He thought of the checklist, the weight of responsibility, the hundreds of lives counted and recounted in his head before every takeoff. "Where are you taking him?" the gate agent asked. "Security office," the officer said. "Until we sort this out." As Marcus was led away, the jet bridge shuddered. Somewhere beyond the glass, an engine coughed to life. The security office smelled like old coffee and disinfectant. Marcus noticed it immediately, the way his mind latched onto details when control slipped away. The room was too small for 3 officers, a metal desk, and a bench bolted to the wall. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. "Sit," the tall officer said. Marcus sat. The cuffs bit into his wrists when he leaned back, cold plastic against warm skin. He rolled his shoulders once, slow, careful. Years in cockpits had taught him how to stay still under pressure. Panic wasted oxygen. The shorter officer, Officer Daniels, according to the badge, set Marcus's ID on the desk like a questionable object. He didn't look at it again. You want to tell us why you were trying to access a restricted area? Daniels asked. Marcus blinked. I wasn't trying. I was scheduled to. I'm the first officer on Flight 447 to Seattle. The tall officer, Reynolds, snorted. You expect us to believe that? Yes, Marcus said. Because it's true. Daniels tapped a pen against the desk. We received a call from a concerned passenger. Said there was a man in uniform who didn't seem right. Marcus felt the familiar sting. Not shock. He'd learned not to give racism that satisfaction, but a deep, grinding exhaustion. Did they say what wasn't right? Marcus asked. Daniels shrugged. They felt uncomfortable. Reynolds leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. And given the current climate, we take that seriously. Marcus nodded once. Then verify me. Call the airline. Call dispatch. Call the captain. We will, Daniels said. In our own time. Minutes passed. Or maybe longer. Time stretched strangely in the room, elastic and unkind. Marcus listened to the muffled airport sounds through the wall. Rolling luggage, distant announcements, life moving forward without him. Finally Marcus spoke again. You're holding an active flight crew member. You understand that, right? Reynolds smiled thinly. You're holding yourself by not cooperating. I am cooperating, Marcus said. I gave you my ID. I gave you instructions on how to verify me. Daniels looked up then, eyes sharp. You don't give us instructions. Marcus held his gaze. Then follow procedure. The word landed heavier than Marcus expected. Reynolds's smile vanished. He pushed off the wall. Careful. I am being careful, Marcus said quietly. You're not. For a moment no one spoke. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder. Or maybe Marcus was just listening harder. Daniels finally picked up the phone. He dialed. Waited. Hung up. No answer, he said. Try again, Marcus replied. Daniels frowned. Don't rush us. From the hallway came hurried footsteps. A voice rose, tense, clipped. The door opened and a woman in a navy blazer stepped inside. Airport operations. Her badge read Linda Carr. What's going on? She asked, eyes moving from Marcus's cuffs to the officers. Reynolds answered first. Potential impersonation. We're verifying. Linda's brow creased. That's the first officer from Flight 447. Reynolds stiffened. Ma'am, with respect, we're handling it. You're delaying a departure, Linda said. Dispatch is blowing up my phone. Daniels held up Marcus's ID. We just need to be sure. Linda took the badge, studied it longer than either officer had. This is legitimate. Reynolds shook his head. We haven't confirmed that. Linda exhaled through her nose. Have you called the airline? Daniels hesitated. We tried once. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them he said, the captain's name is Robert Klein. You can verify with him directly. Linda looked at Reynolds. Uncuff him. Reynolds didn't move. Not until we finish. Linda's jaw tightened. This is not how this works. Reynolds stepped closer to Marcus, looming. You think you're above scrutiny. Marcus met his stare. I think you're afraid of being wrong. The air snapped. Linda raised a hand. Enough. I'm calling dispatch myself. She turned away, phone already to her ear. Reynolds muttered. Unbelievable. Daniels avoided Marcus's eyes. From the phone, Linda's voice sharpened. Yes, he's here. In custody. She paused, listening. Her shoulders stiffened. What do you mean, the captain? She stopped. Looked back at Marcus. Captain Klein collapsed in the cockpit. Medical just pulled him. The room shifted. Reynolds straightened. What? Linda swallowed. He's conscious, but he's not flying. Silence rushed in, thick and sudden. Marcus felt his pulse quicken, training overriding shock. Then I'm the only qualified pilot left for that aircraft. Daniels laughed nervously. That's not our problem. It is, Linda said sharply. It's everyone's problem. Her phone buzzed again. She answered immediately. Yes, I see. She lowered it slowly. We don't have another pilot available for at least 3 hours. Reynolds crossed his arms tighter. So that plane doesn't go anywhere without him, Linda said, nodding at Marcus. Marcus watched realization creep, unwelcome and ugly, across Reynolds's face. The same man who'd cuffed him now needed him. Daniels cleared his throat. We can't just let him go. Not after. After what? Linda snapped. After embarrassing yourselves. Reynolds bristled. Watch it. Linda held her ground. Uncuff him. Reynolds hesitated. Pride warred with necessity. From the hallway came a shout. They're filming this. Linda closed her eyes for half a second. When she opened them, her voice was calm but deadly serious. Uncuff. Now. Reynolds stepped forward. The cuffs clicked open, loose and sudden. Marcus rubbed his wrists, the red marks stark against his skin. No one apologized. Linda looked at Marcus, something like regret flickering across her face. Can you still fly? Marcus stood slowly. He straightened his jacket, adjusted his cap. Every movement deliberate. Yes, he said. But understand this. What you did doesn't disappear just because you need me. Reynolds scoffed. You should be grateful. Marcus looked at him then. Really looked. I am, Marcus said evenly. Grateful I know exactly who you are. Outside the office, the terminal buzzed louder now. Phones raised, whispers spreading, a story beginning to move without permission. Linda opened the door. Let's go. They're waiting. Marcus stepped into the hallway, eyes forward, shoulders squared. The system hadn't broken. It had revealed itself. The terminal no longer sounded the same to Marcus. What had once been background noise, the rolling suitcases, the soft chime of boarding announcements, the low murmur of travelers, now pressed against him like static. Every step toward Gate 32 felt heavier than the last, as if the building itself were resisting his return. Linda walked fast beside him. Operations is trying to buy us time, she said quietly. They're telling passengers it's a medical delay. Marcus nodded. That won't hold. No, she admitted. It never does. They rounded the corner and the gate came into view. The aircraft stood outside the glass, still docked, engines silent now. At the gate, passengers were standing, phones up, faces alert. Some recognized him immediately. That's him, a woman whispered. Not quietly. A man near the window frowned. That's the guy they arrested. Marcus kept his eyes forward. At the counter, a flight attendant leaned toward the gate agent, her voice tight. We can't keep them seated much longer. The gate agent glanced up and froze when she saw Marcus. Oh, she said. You're back, Marcus finished. Her face flushed. I'm sorry. Before he could respond, a voice cut in sharp and loud. So now he's free. Marcus turned. A middle-aged man in a gray jacket stood with his phone raised chest-high, camera rolling. His tone wasn't angry exactly. More suspicious, as if outrage were an option he hadn't yet chosen. Linda stepped forward. Sir, please lower your phone. No, the man said. I want this on record. Marcus exhaled slowly. Record it then. The man blinked, caught off guard. I'm the first officer assigned to this flight, Marcus continued. I was detained in error. The captain is medically unable to fly. That plane does not move unless I do. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. That's true, someone asked. The flight attendant, Erin, her badge red, stepped forward. Yes. He's our pilot. She looked directly at Marcus, steady and unapologetic. He always is. Something loosened in Marcus's chest. Not relief, something warmer, more fragile. From behind them came hurried footsteps. A man in a rumpled suit appeared, tie half loosened, phone still in his hand. "Marcus," he said. "Thank God." "Tom," Marcus replied. "Dispatch." Tom nodded. "We've been trying to reach you for 40 minutes. Why didn't you?" He stopped, took in the scene. "Phones. The stairs." "Oh," he said quietly. "I see." Linda crossed her arms. "We're past explanations. Can he fly?" Tom looked at Marcus. "Are you fit?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "Yes." Tom nodded once. "Then we need you in that cockpit. Now." A voice rose from the crowd. "Hold on." Everyone turned. A woman stood near the gate rope, arms folded tight across her chest. "So you're just going to pretend none of this happened?" Silence fell. Marcus studied her face. Not hostile, not friendly. Searching. "No," he said. "We're not pretending." "Then explain," she said. "Because I watched you get dragged away like a criminal." Reynolds's voice cut in from behind. "Ma'am, we're handling." Marcus turned sharply. "No, you're not." Reynolds stopped. Marcus faced the passengers. What happened was wrong. It was unnecessary. And it should never have happened. Reynolds bristled. "That's not." Linda shot him a look. He shut up. "But right now," Marcus continued, "there are over 100 people on that plane who need to get where they're going safely. That's my job. And I'm going to do it." Beep. Then Aaron spoke again. "If anyone feels unsafe flying with him, you're free to deplane." No one moved. The woman who had spoken earlier lowered her arms. Slowly. "I want him flying," she said. "After what I saw. I trust him more than anyone else here." Few people nodded. Someone clapped once. Tentative, uncertain. Marcus swallowed. Tom leaned in. "Cockpit, please." They moved down the jet bridge together. The narrow tunnel amplified everything. Footsteps, breathing, the scrape of shoes. Halfway down, Marcus stopped. Tom turned. "What is it?" "Those officers," Marcus said. "They're coming, aren't they?" Tom hesitated. "Procedure." Marcus nodded. "Then they walk behind me." Moments later, Reynolds and Daniels entered the jet bridge, stiff and silent. The same boots, the same belts, the same posture. But now they kept their distance. Passengers watched through the glass as Marcus passed, flanked but no longer restrained. Cameras followed every step. Inside the aircraft, the cockpit door stood open. Marcus paused at the threshold. The captain's seat was empty. Not just vacant, abandoned. Checklist pages lay half-flipped. A coffee cup sat untouched in the holder. The smell of recycled air and electronics wrapped around him, familiar and grounding. Aaron stepped beside him. "We're ready when you are." Marcus placed his hand on the back of the captain's chair. He closed his eyes for half a second. In his mind, numbers aligned. Systems snapped into place. Muscle memory overrode memory of cuffs, of hands on his arms, of being questioned simply for standing where he belonged. Behind him, Reynolds shifted. "You sure you can handle this?" the officer muttered. Marcus turned slowly. "I've been handling worse than this my whole life," he said. Reynolds looked away. Marcus stepped fully into the cockpit and sat. The seat adjusted beneath him, molding to his shape like it always had. He placed his hands on the controls, not to start, not yet, just to feel them. Outside, the aircraft remained still. Inside, something irreversible had already begun. The first video hit social media before the cockpit door fully closed. A shaky clip, 30 seconds long, showed Marcus in uniform, hands cuffed behind his back, being led away from the gate. No context. No sound beyond the echo of boots and a woman whispering, "Is that the pilot?" By the time Marcus finished his pre-flight checks, there were dozens more. Inside the cabin, phones glowed like small, restless eyes. Passengers leaned into one another, whispering, scrolling, refreshing. Erin moved down the aisle with deliberate calm, but even she couldn't stop the current humming through the aircraft. Marcus felt it through the walls of the cockpit. He adjusted his headset, exhaled, and focused on the overhead panel. Fuel pumps, electrical, hydraulics. Each switch answered with a familiar click, a reassurance that systems, at least some of them, worked exactly as designed. A knock came at the cockpit door. "Come in," Marcus said. Erin stepped inside and closed it behind her. Her face was composed, but her eyes were sharp. "They're talking," she said. "Not yelling. Not panicking. But they're watching everything." Marcus nodded. "I expected that." She hesitated. "They're watching you." "I know." Erin crossed her arms. "One passenger asked if you were going to make an announcement." Marcus considered that. "Not yet." She studied him. "You shouldn't have to say anything." "I shouldn't have been arrested either," Marcus replied gently. Erin gave a tight smile. "Fair point." She lingered a moment longer. "For what it's worth. I'm glad you're up here." "So am I," Marcus said. When she left, Marcus allowed himself a single breath with his eyes closed. Just one. Long enough to feel the weight of the morning settle where it belonged. Behind him, not in front. From the jump seat, the relief first officer, young, pale, hands clenched together, cleared his throat. "Sir." Marcus turned. "Yes. I just wanted to say. I saw everything." Marcus waited. "It wasn't right," the man continued. "What they did." Marcus nodded once. "No. It wasn't." The man swallowed. "If you need anything." "I need you focused," Marcus said, not unkindly. "That's how you help." "Yes, sir." Outside the aircraft, the situation grew louder. At the gate, airport staff huddled around phones. Linda stood near the counter, fielding calls with clipped answers. Every few seconds, she glanced at the cockpit door, as if bracing for impact. Reynolds and Daniels remained just beyond the jet bridge entrance, boxed in by policy and optics. Reynolds scrolled furiously on his phone, jaw tight. "They're already calling it racial profiling," Daniels muttered. Reynolds scoffed. "They always do." Daniels hesitated. "I mean, it doesn't look good." Reynolds shot him a look. "You want to be the first one to say we were wrong?" Daniels said nothing. On the plane, Marcus finished his checklist and sat back. Through the windshield, the runway stretched ahead, empty, patient. In the cabin, the woman who had spoken earlier, middle row, left side, held her phone low and steady. She wasn't recording anymore. She was reading. Her neighbor leaned in. "They're saying the captain was detained because someone didn't think he looked like a pilot." The woman's mouth tightened. "He is the pilot." "Apparently," the neighbor said, uneasy. I didn't think this kind of thing happened anymore." The woman didn't answer. She watched the cockpit door instead. Chime sounded. Erin's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We'll be departing shortly." No explanation. No apology. Just fact. Some passengers relaxed. Others leaned forward. In the cockpit, Marcus rested his hands lightly on the controls. He thought of his father, how he'd warned him early, quietly, that competence would never be enough on its own. Be excellent anyway, his father had said. But understand the rules change depending on who's watching. Soft knock again. Linda entered this time, closing the door quickly behind her. She looked tired now. "We're getting pressure," she said. "From the airline. From the airport authority. From everywhere." Marcus didn't respond. He shifted. "There will be an investigation." "Yes," Marcus said. "And statements." "Yes." She swallowed. "I'm sorry. It wasn't loud. It wasn't formal. It wasn't enough. But it was something." Marcus met her eyes. "I don't need your apology right now. I need you to remember what this felt like when it would have been easier not to." Linda nodded slowly. "I will." Left. The cabin door sealed with a heavy thud. The outside world fell slightly away. Marcus's voice came calm and steady through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is First Officer Marcus Hale. Thank you for your patience. We'll be pushing back shortly. The pause after his name was electric. Some passengers smiled. Some straightened. A few exhaled sharply, like they'd been holding their breath without realizing it. A man near the back whispered, "That's him." Another replied, "Good." On the tarmac, ground crew signaled readiness. The aircraft eased backward inch by inch. Reynolds watched from the window, face pale. He looked smaller now, not diminished but exposed. Daniels shifted beside him. "What if this goes bad for us?" Reynolds didn't answer. Inside, the engines began their slow, rising whine. The vibration traveled through the floor, into Marcus's bones. Familiar. Grounding. As they taxied, Marcus kept his gaze forward. He didn't look at the cabin cameras. He didn't look back. At 30 feet, he heard laughter ripple softly through the plane. Nervous, relieved, human. 300 feet, phones went dark. And somewhere between the ground and the sky, the story stopped being about what was taken from him, and became about what no one could take back. The witnesses had seen enough. The aircraft climbed smoothly, the city thinning into geometry beneath the wing. Marcus monitored the ascent with practiced calm, eyes moving between instruments, hands light on the controls. The hum of the engines settled into a steady rhythm, predictable, dependable. He let that steadiness anchor him. At 10,000 feet, the cabin lights softened. Seatbelt signs chimed off. The plane exhaled. In the cabin, conversation returned in fragments, careful at first, then freer. Passengers leaned back, stretched legs, traded looks that said we're okay. Erin moved down the aisle, collecting cups, her posture easing with each step. Marcus glanced at the clock. On schedule despite everything. The relief first officer shifted in his seat. "Sir, I've never seen anything like that." Marcus kept his eyes forward. "You will again." The younger man frowned. "You think so?" Marcus nodded once. "Just maybe not to you." Silence followed. The kind that carried meaning. A soft chime signaled an incoming message on the cockpit console. Marcus read it without reacting. Statement requested. Media aware. Legal looped. He felt the weight of it settle. Not fear, not anger, but responsibility. Stories would be told with or without him. Facts would be trimmed, softened, buried in words like misunderstanding and procedure. He'd seen it before. Another message followed. "Are you okay to continue flight?" Marcus typed back with deliberate care. "Flight normal. We'll address after landing." He set the console aside. In the cabin, the woman from the gate, left side middle row, closed her eyes and rested her head against the window. Her phone lay face down on her lap. For the first time since boarding, she slept. 3 rows behind her, a man whispered to his seatmate, "My brother's a pilot. Happens more than you'd think." His seatmate shook her head. "Not like that." "No," he agreed. "Not like that." Halfway through the flight, Erin returned to the cockpit. "Coffee?" she asked. Marcus smiled faintly. "Please." She handed him the cup, then hesitated in the doorway. "They're asking questions." "Who?" Marcus asked. "Everyone," she said. "Passengers. Crew." "My phone hasn't stopped buzzing." Marcus took a sip. The coffee was bitter, grounding. "What are you telling them?" "The truth," Erin said. "That you were detained. That it was wrong. That you're flying the plane anyway." Marcus nodded. "Thank you." She studied him. "They're going to try to rush this. Wrap it up neat. I can feel it." "Yes," Marcus said. "They always do." Erin folded her arms. "You going to let them?" Marcus met her eyes. "No." She smiled then, small, fierce. "Good." When she left, Marcus stared out at the horizon, where the sky darkened to a deeper blue. He thought of his mother's voice on the phone years ago, careful not to sound worried even when she was. "Did you keep your hands visible? Did you speak slowly? Did you remember they don't see you the way they see themselves?" He'd answered yes every time. He always did. Another message blinked on the console. This one marked priority. Airport authority requests post-landing meeting. Presence of counsel. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. "Sir?" the relief officer asked. "Nothing," Marcus said. "Just noise." The rest of the flight passed without incident. Smooth air. Clear skies. The kind of flight pilots remembered for its absence of drama. As they began descent, Marcus made an announcement. Measured, professional, brief. No mention of the morning. No justification. Just altitude, weather, arrival time. The plane responded with quiet compliance. When the wheels touched down, applause broke out. It started in the back, scattered and uncertain, then spread. Not thunderous. Not performative. Real. Marcus kept his hands steady on the controls until the aircraft slowed and turned off the runway. At the gate, the door opened to a different world. Airport personnel waited. Too many of them. Badges. A woman with a tablet already raised. A man with a practiced smile. Linda stood among them, arms crossed tightly. She caught Marcus's eye and looked away. As the cockpit door opened, the cabin filled with light and expectation. Passengers stood, gathering bags, but many lingered. Some nodded to Marcus as they passed. "Thank you," the woman from the gate said quietly as she paused near the cockpit. "For getting us here." Marcus nodded back. "You're welcome." Last off the plane, he stepped into the jet bridge. The man with the practiced smile stepped forward. "Captain Hale." "First officer," Marcus corrected calmly. The man blinked. "Right. Course. I'm here on behalf of the airport authority. We'd like to speak with you privately." "Counsel present?" Marcus asked. "Yes." "Recorded," Marcus added. The man hesitated. "That may not be necessary." "It is," Marcus said. "Beep." "Of course," the man said, smile tightening. Reynolds stood near the wall, stiff and silent. Daniels hovered beside him, eyes on the floor. Marcus stopped in front of them. Reynolds looked up, jaw working. "Look." "Don't," Marcus said quietly. Reynolds swallowed. "We were just doing our job." Marcus nodded. "So am I." He turned away. The meeting room was glass-walled and too bright. A lawyer spoke first, carefully, vaguely. Words like regret and miscommunication floated through the air. Marcus listened without interrupting. When it was his turn, he spoke evenly. No raised voice. No accusation. "You detained a licensed pilot in uniform without verification," he said. "You ignored credentials. You dismissed correction. You escalated because you were challenged." The lawyer shifted. Marcus continued. "You didn't stop when procedure demanded it. You stopped when optics required it." Silence followed. "There will be an investigation," the lawyer said again. "Yes," Marcus replied. "And I will cooperate fully." He stood. "But understand this. Your clearance to manage this narrative is pending." The lawyer frowned. "Pending on what?" Marcus met his gaze. "On whether you tell the truth without being forced to." He left the room without waiting for permission. Outside, evening light spilled across the terminal. Marcus adjusted his cap and walked forward, shoulders squared. Behind him, systems recalibrated. Slowly, reluctantly. Ahead of him, the cost of being right waited. Uncertain, unavoidable. And Marcus kept walking anyway. The terminal had changed its posture by the time Marcus stepped back into it. Not louder, if anything, quieter. Conversations dipped when he passed. People looked up, then away, then back again, as if unsure which reaction was permitted. He felt it in the air, a collective recalibration. The moment after something undeniable happens and everyone pretends they are still the same. Linda walked a few steps behind him now, not beside. She held her phone at her side, screen dark. No more calls. No more instructions. "Transportation is ready," she said. "If you want it." Marcus shook his head. "I'll walk." She nodded, accepting it without comment. As they moved toward the exit, a young man in a hoodie stepped into Marcus's path. He hesitated, then spoke. "My dad's a cop," the man said. "He always says, well, he says stuff." Marcus waited. "But what happened to you?" the man continued. "That wasn't right." Marcus studied his face. Earnest, uncomfortable, trying. "No," Marcus said. "It wasn't." The man swallowed. "I posted the video. I didn't edit it." "Good," Marcus replied. "Don't." The man nodded, stepped aside. Outside, the evening had settled into amber light, the kind that softened edges without hiding them. Marcus breathed it in. For the first time all day, his chest didn't feel tight. A black sedan idled at the curb. The driver stepped out, crisp suit, practice neutrality. "Captain Hale." "First officer," Marcus said again. The driver corrected himself instantly. "Of course. Where to?" "Home," Marcus said, then paused. "Actually, no." Linda raised an eyebrow. "Take me back to the airport authority offices," Marcus said. "The main ones." The driver hesitated. "Sir." "I'm not done," Marcus said. The drive was short. Too short for the thoughts crowding his head. He watched the city blur past, each intersection another place where this story could have ended differently, with less restraint, less luck, less witness. At the building, security recognized him immediately. No delay. No questions. Inside, the lobby smelled of polish and quiet authority. Marcus checked in, then waited. Alone. When the doors opened, the same lawyer from earlier emerged, flanked now by a woman Marcus hadn't seen before. Older. Sharper eyes. Power worn lightly. "Mr. Hale," she said. "I'm Diane Mercer, Airport Authority Director." Marcus nodded. "Director Mercer." She gestured toward the conference room. "Please." Inside, the blinds were half drawn. Evening light cut the room into bands of gold and shadow. Diane sat first. The lawyer followed. Marcus remained standing. "Please," Diane said. "Sit." Marcus didn't. Diane studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right." She folded her hands. "What happened today should not have happened." Marcus said nothing. "We are placing both officers on administrative leave pending investigation," she continued. "Body camera footage has been secured. Statements are being collected." "And the call?" Marcus asked. "The one that started it." Diane hesitated. "Anonymous." "Of course," Marcus said. The lawyer cleared his throat. "We're prepared to issue a statement acknowledging procedural failures." "No," Marcus said calmly. The lawyer blinked. "Excuse me. You're prepared to issue a statement that protects the institution," Marcus said. "That's not the same thing." Diane leaned back slightly. "What do you want, Mr. Hale?" Marcus met her gaze. "The truth. Unedited. No euphemisms." The lawyer frowned. "That could expose the authority to accountability," Marcus said. Diane raised a hand, silencing the lawyer. "Go on." Marcus took a breath. "You say I was detained because of a call. You say procedure failed. But what actually happened was this. Two officers saw a black man in a position of authority and decided that was suspicious. The room went still. They ignored credentials," Marcus continued. "They escalated when challenged. They dismissed verification. And they only stopped when the system needed me more than it needed them to be right." Diane's jaw tightened, not in anger but recognition. "That truth," Marcus said, "doesn't disappear just because it's uncomfortable." The lawyer shifted. "Mr. Hale, intent is difficult to prove." "I'm not asking you to prove intent," Marcus replied. "I'm asking you to stop hiding behind it." Silence again. Diane exhaled slowly. "You understand what you're asking?" "Yes," Marcus said. "I also understand what happens if you don't." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded once. "We will issue a full statement," she said. "We will release footage. And we will cooperate with any external review." The lawyer's head snapped toward her. "Diane." I said we will, she repeated. Marcus finally sat. And the officers, he asked. They will face consequences, Diane said. I won't promise you justice. But I won't promise you nothing. Marcus nodded. It was more honesty than he'd expected. As he stood to leave, Diane spoke again. For what it's worth, you handled today with restraint most people wouldn't have. Marcus paused. Restraint isn't virtue, he said. It's survival. Outside, night had fully arrived. The city lights blinked on, indifferent and alive. Marcus walked alone now. No escort. No statements. Just pavement and breath. His phone buzzed. A message from his mother. Saw the news. Call me when you're home. Another buzz. From Erin. Cruise with you. Whatever you need. Another. From a number he didn't recognize. Thank you for not letting them bury this. Marcus slipped the phone into his pocket. At a crosswalk he stopped, waiting for the light. Cars passed. People crossed. Life moved forward, uneven but persistent. When the light changed, Marcus stepped out. Behind him, the system was still scrambling, drafting statements, weighing risk, calculating fallout. Ahead of him, something steadier waited. Not peace. Not closure. Authority. The kind that didn't come from a badge or a uniform or a cockpit seat. The kind earned by holding course when everything tries to push you off it. And Marcus Hale kept walking. Clear-eyed, grounded, and fully in control. At 30,000 feet, the world simplified. Cities flattened into patterns. Borders dissolved into suggestion. The noise that followed Marcus all day, boots, voices, judgments, fell away, replaced by the steady breath of the aircraft. Pure physics ruled without bias. Lift was lift. Weight was weight. Cause and effect answered cleanly. Marcus adjusted his headset and scanned the instruments. Everything read green. Everything behaved. Beside him, the relief first officer sat straighter than before. Hands steady now, eyes focused. The earlier tension had drained from his face, replaced by something closer to awe. I've flown this route a dozen times, the younger man said quietly. It's never felt like this. Marcus glanced at him. How does it feel? Like, it matters more. Marcus nodded. It does. In the cabin, the mood had shifted again. Not relief this time, but reflection. People spoke in lower voices. Some stared out windows longer than necessary. Others watched Marcus's shadow move beneath the cockpit door when the light hit just right. The woman in the middle row woke and sat up slowly. For a moment she looked disoriented. Then memory returned. Her gaze fixed on the ceiling, on the unseen pilots guiding them forward. She thought of the cuffs, of the stillness on Marcus's face when it happened, of how quickly authority had been assumed and removed. Across the aisle, a teenage boy whispered to his mother, "Is he really flying?" "Yes," she said. "He is. After they arrested him." "Yes." The boy frowned. "Why would they do that?" His mother hesitated. Then carefully, "Because sometimes people see what they expect instead of what's real." The boy absorbed that in silence. In the cockpit, a chime sounded. Marcus glanced at the cabin indicator. Someone had pressed the call button near the front. Erin's voice came through moments later. "Marcus, when you have a second." "Go ahead," Marcus said. "A few passengers asked if you'd be willing to say something. Not details. Just acknowledgement." Marcus leaned back slightly. He felt the weight of the request. Not obligation, not pressure, but invitation. "I'll handle it," he said. He waited until they leveled off. Until the aircraft settled fully into cruise. Then he keyed the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice calm and even. "This is First Officer Marcus Hale speaking from the flight deck." The cabin went still. "I want to thank you for your patience today," he continued. "And for your trust." He paused, not for effect, but because some truths deserved space. "What happened on the ground this morning was not routine," Marcus said. "And it was not acceptable." A ripple moved through the cabin. No one spoke. "But I also want you to know this," he went on. Every system that keeps this aircraft safe is functioning exactly as it should. And every person up here is focused on one thing: getting you where you're going. He let that land. Thank you for flying with us. The mic clicked off. For a long moment, there was only the sound of air moving over wings. Then softly applause returned. Not loud. Not celebratory. Something closer to agreement. Marcus exhaled. The relief first officer swallowed. That was perfect. Marcus shook his head. It was honest. They flew on. At 35,000 feet, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the cabin. Marcus watched clouds drift below, massive and indifferent. He thought of the officers. How small they'd looked once the narrative slipped from their hands. How power, when unexamined, always mistook itself for certainty. He thought of the authority director's face when he'd refused the easy statement. Of how truth unsettled rooms built for control. Mostly he thought of the cost. The cost of keeping your voice steady when everything in you wants to shout. The cost of choosing restraint over release. The cost of knowing that even when you're right, the world will ask you to prove it gently. A soft tap at the cockpit door. Erin stepped in, her expression lighter than it had been all day. They're calmer, she said. Listening. Talking. Good, Marcus replied. She leaned against the frame. One passenger asked if you'd consider speaking publicly. An interview. Marcus considered that. Not today. She nodded. That's what I told them. But soon, Marcus added. On my terms. Erin smiled. I figured. When she left, Marcus looked ahead again. The horizon was a thin, unwavering line. Down below the world would argue. Headlines would sharpen. Comment sections would rot. Institutions would defend themselves with careful language and delayed actions. Here none of that mattered. Here Marcus was exactly what he had always been. Measured, trained, trusted. Not because the system said so, but because gravity did. As they began descent, Marcus felt the familiar shift in pressure, the gentle reminder that flight was temporary. Even control had limits. Still, when the ground rose to meet them, Marcus felt ready. Ready to land. Ready to answer questions. Ready to carry the weight of what came next. The wheels touched down smoothly. Another safe arrival. As the aircraft taxied, the cabin filled with quiet movement. Bags lifted, belts clicked, lives resumed. Marcus guided the plane to the gate and shut down the engines. The hum faded. For a moment he sat still. At 30,000 feet, the truth had been clear. Now on the ground he would make sure it stayed that way.
The terminal met them with lights and waiting faces. As the cockpit door opened, Marcus felt the shift immediately, the quiet tension of people deciding how to behave now that the moment had passed but the meaning had not. Cameras hovered at a distance. Security stood straighter than before. No one blocked his path. Passengers filed out slowly. Some offered nods. A few murmured thanks. One man stopped long enough to meet Marcus's eyes and say, "I saw it. All of it." Then he moved on. When the last passenger cleared the jet bridge, Erin lingered at the doorway. "You good?" she asked. Marcus considered the question. "I'm here." She nodded, understanding. "We've got your back." Outside the aircraft, the corridor had been cleared, too neatly. A sign of preparation. Marcus stepped into it anyway. The press waited beyond the glass wall this time. Not a mob, but a line. Microphones clustered like a bouquet. A producer spoke quietly into an earpiece. Red lights blinked. Linda stood off to the side, pale but composed. When Marcus approached, she fell into step beside him.
"They want a statement," she said.
"Short."
"Whose?"
Marcus asked. She hesitated. "Yours." Marcus stopped. "I'll give one." Relief flickered across her face. "Thank you." "But not like that," Marcus added. They reached a marked spot on the floor. Tape lines. The press leaned forward as one. A reporter spoke first. "Captain Hale." "First officer," Marcus said calmly. The reporter nodded quickly. "First Officer Hale, Can you describe what happened before your flight? Marcus looked at the microphones, then beyond them, at the people watching through screens, waiting for either fire or forgiveness. I was detained, he said, despite presenting valid credentials. Verification was delayed. Escalation followed. It was unnecessary. Another reporter jumped in. Do you believe race played a role? Marcus didn't rush his answer. I believe assumptions did, he said. And assumptions don't exist in a vacuum. Cameras clicked. Are you satisfied with the airport authorities' response? Someone asked. No, Marcus replied. The word landed cleanly. But I am engaged with it, he continued. Accountability isn't about satisfaction. It's about change. A murmur moved through the crowd. Do you plan to file a lawsuit? Marcus met the reporter's gaze. I plan to tell the truth. Repeatedly. If institutions change because of that, good. If they don't, I'll keep telling it. Silence followed. Not awkward. Intent. Linda stepped forward. That will be all. As they moved away, Marcus felt a strange lightness. Not relief, but release. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't offended his humanity. He'd stated facts and refused to soften them. Inside a conference room upstairs, the tone shifted again. Diane Mercer sat at the head of the table. Counsel lined the wall. A representative from the airline joined remotely, face tight on the screen. The footage has been reviewed, Diane said. It corroborates Mr. Hale's account. The lawyer cleared his throat. We recommend immediate suspension pending disciplinary proceedings. Agreed, Diane said. For both officers. A pause. And? Marcus asked. Diane looked at him. And we are instituting mandatory changes to verification protocol at secure gates. Immediate implementation. Marcus nodded once. Good. We're also bringing in an external review board, Diane added. Independent. The airline rep spoke up. We will be issuing our own statement in support of Mr. Hale. Marcus met the screen. Support is not a press release. The rep flushed. We understand. Diane folded her hands. You've forced a necessary reckoning, Mr. Hale. Marcus leaned back. I didn't force it. I survived it. The meeting ended without ceremony. Outside, the evening air carried a faint chill. Marcus stepped into it alone this time, the building's lights glowing behind him like a held breath finally released. His phone buzzed. A message from his mother. I'm proud of you. Another from his father, brief as ever. You flew at home. Marcus smiled. At home, the quiet felt unfamiliar. He set his keys down, removed his cap, and placed it carefully on the table. The red marks on his wrists had faded to shadows. He turned on the television. Coverage played, without sound. His image appeared, measured, calm. The caption beneath it read Pilot detained before flight, returns TO fly. He turned it off. Later, as night deepened, his phone rang. An unfamiliar number. This is Internal Affairs, a voice said. We'd like to schedule an interview. Tomorrow, Marcus replied. With counsel. Understood. He ended the call and sat for a long moment in the quiet. Accountability, he knew, was not a moment. It was a corridor, long, fluorescent, full of doors some people tried to close. It required stamina. It required memory. He thought of the witnesses. Of Aaron's steady presence. Of the woman on the plane who had trusted him after watching him be humiliated. He thought of the officers, now suspended, facing consequences that would feel sudden to them and overdue to others. Marcus stood and walked to the window. The city spread below, lights flickering like signals. Tomorrow would bring statements and interviews and attempts to minimize. There would be praise he didn't ask for and criticism he didn't deserve. There would be fatigue. But tonight, something had shifted. The system had blinked. And in that blink, the truth had slipped through. Morning arrived quietly. Marcus woke before the alarm, the way he always did after a long flight, body still tuned to altitude, to responsibility. Sunlight filtered through the blinds in thin bands, painting the wall in gold and shadow. For a moment, he lay still and listened to the ordinary sounds of the city waking up, a car door closing, footsteps on concrete, a distant siren that rose and fell without urgency. Ordinary was a relief. He swung his feet to the floor and noticed the ache then. Not sharp, not dramatic. A dull heaviness behind his ribs. The kind that didn't come from injury but from holding too much steady for too long. The phone buzzed on the nightstand. Internal Affairs reminder, 10 a.m. Marcus exhaled. Today would be another cockpit, just without windows. He showered, dressed, and left the apartment with the same care he brought to pre-flight. Outside, the building's doorman nodded. "Morning, Captain." Marcus paused. "First officer." The doorman blinked, then smiled.
Right.
"Morning." Marcus smiled back, small and genuine, and kept walking. The interview room was clean and neutral. 2 investigators sat across from him, a recorder placed carefully in the center of the table. His attorney sat beside him, calm and watchful. They asked their questions methodically. Marcus answered the same way. He didn't embellish. He didn't editorialize. He described sequence, decision points, language used. He named the pauses, where verification could have happened, where it didn't. At one point, one of the investigators cleared his throat. "When Officer Reynolds said you didn't look like a pilot, how did that make you feel?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. "It didn't surprise me," he said finally. "It clarified things." The investigator nodded, writing that down as if it were a technical detail. When it was over, Marcus felt drained but intact. He stepped back into the street, blinking against the midday light. Messages waited on his phone, some supportive, some angry on his behalf, some demanding more than he had to give. He answered none of them yet. Instead, he walked. He passed a school where children spilled onto a playground, laughter cutting clean through the air. A boy ran past him, arms outstretched, pretending to fly. Marcus watched him go, the image settling somewhere deep and tender. At a cafe, he ordered coffee and sat by the window. 2 people at the next table whispered, glancing at him. "That's him," one said. Marcus met their eyes and nodded politely. They flushed, then nodded back. He drank his coffee slowly. By afternoon, the statement dropped. The airport authority released footage.
Clear.
Unedited. The words racial bias appeared where misunderstanding had been expected. The officer's suspensions were confirmed. An external review announced. The news cycle roared to life. Marcus turned the television off again. His mother called. "I wish I could hug you through the phone," she said. "I know," Marcus replied. "I feel it anyway." His father's voice came on the line later, steadier but heavier than usual. "You did good," he said. "And it shouldn't have cost you this much." Marcus leaned against the counter. "It always does." That evening, Aaron texted. "Crew's getting together. Nothing formal."
You in?
Marcus hesitated, then typed back.
Yes.
They met at a quiet place near the airport. Dim lights, worn wood, a space that didn't ask questions. Laughter came slowly at first, cautious around the edges, then freer. Stories drifted in about turbulence, about impossible passengers, about moments when someone else had spoken up and changed the outcome by inches. Erin raised her glass. "To flying," she said. "To flying," they echoed. Later, walking home alone, Marcus felt the fatigue catch up to him. Not the bone-deep exhaustion of a long-duty day, but something more personal. A reckoning with the fact that being right didn't erase what had happened. That accountability didn't rewind time. At a crosswalk, he stopped. The light glowed red. A man beside him glanced over. "You're the pilot," the man said. "Yes," Marcus replied. "Thanks," the man said simply. "For not backing down." The light turned green. Marcus crossed. That night, he laid his uniform out for the next day, pressed, precise. He traced the wings on his chest with a fingertip, then folded the jacket carefully. He knew what came next. There would be policy changes that worked on paper and faltered in practice. There would be people who called him brave and others who called him divisive. There would be days when he walked into terminals and felt watched again, not with suspicion, but with expectation. Expectation was its own weight. But there would also be moments like this, quiet, unremarkable, earned. Moments where a child pretended to fly without fear of being told he didn't belong. Moments where a system paused long enough to reconsider its reflexes. Marcus turned off the light and lay in the dark. He thought of the cockpit, the way it felt when everything aligned, when training and trust met. He thought of the plane lifting, of witnesses watching, of truth holding steady at altitude. Being right hadn't protected him, but it had protected something else. A line had been drawn, a record made, a door left open. Marcus closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he would fly again. Not because the world had changed overnight, but because he had proven, unmistakably, that he belonged exactly where he was. And this time, the witnesses would remember.